Something in our world is changing. Our bodies are rejecting the food we eat. And even the experts don't really know why.
Okay, then it's finished. Then the interview is finished.
That's a good way to solve things.
Yeah. You're a complete jerk.
Here's the hard truth. Americans are fat and getting fatter. A shocking new report from the Centers for Disease Control shows America's obesity rates show no signs of slowing down.
Well, in that case, with the Chinese prisoners, they actually, their fingernails fall off from peeling garlic all day because it's so acidic. So they're using their teeth to peel the garlic that you then buy in those large containers at supermarkets.
They're peeling the garlic with their teeth?
With their teeth, yes.
Nuts, finfish, shellfish, sesame seeds, and legumes.
A surge in food allergies, especially among children.
It's a well-known fact that America is one of the most obese nations in the world, as you said, and the problem is only getting worse. Now, according to the most recent reporting, 40% of American adults are obese. That's nearly half of all adults, Governor. And children aren't faring any better. Almost 20% of our nation's children suffer from excessive weight. That's too much. Today, more people die from overeating than starvation and human violence. It seems like we're fighting a war on ourselves.
What makes the U.S. one of the most overweight nation among developed countries? Well, food activists say it's all about addiction maintained by a subtle system of technological and marketing tricks by food corporations. Marina Podnaya looks into what's feeding America's food habit.
It's the richest country on earth, where banks can't fail and waistlines can't stop expanding.
Waistlines in America are growing. An alarming new study showing half of all Americans could be obese in less than 20 years.
Sugary drinks and wider waistlines go hand in hand.
With 1 out of every 3 adults clinically obese and 40% of children officially overweight, experts say food has become a drug, engineered, cooked and marketed by an industry banking on addiction.
What these food scientists have done is they've gone into a lab and they've created these chemical concoctions that are very sweet, very fatty, and very salty, and they call it a bliss point.
Scientists and food industry whistleblowers say big food companies engineer processed foods and beverages with ingredients that pique the taste buds while tricking the brain to think you're still hungry, causing you to eat more. But in a country where diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart disease are becoming all too common among millions of children and adolescents, why don't food corporations create healthier recipes?
Highlighting a company that is disrupting the food industry, forever changing the way you and I eat. In fact, CNBC named Impossible Foods one of its top 50 disruptors for 2019. The company behind the burger that everybody's talking about, the Impossible Burger. It smells and cooks just like beef, but it's made from plants. The burger is being rolled out in fast food chains like Burger King and White Castle. And the company ain't stopping there. Its mission, eliminate the need for animals in the food system by 2035. I recently spoke to the CEO and founder of Impossible Foods, Pat Brown, and after 25 years as a researcher at Stanford's medical school, I asked him why he decided to suddenly enter the food industry.
I just decided, I realized that the use of animals in food production was an absolute environmental catastrophe, that in particular this biodiversity collapse got me going. And since nobody was trying to solve the problem, nobody really thought it was possible to completely replace that whole industry, I felt like, well, I mean, it's not my job, but yeah, it is my job because no one else is doing it. So that's what I did. And as a scientist, I knew it was possible. I knew it wasn't easy, but I knew it was doable.
It wasn't impossible, hence the name.
Indeed.
Help us understand the difference. We know the toll it takes on the environment, animal food production, how different what you're doing is. I don't think people realize this is a climate change story.
Oh, absolutely. So the use of animals in food production is one of the greatest sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the world, probably second only to the power industry. The greenhouse gas emissions from our production process are about 1/9 the greenhouse gas emissions involved in producing the same product, a burger from a cow.
So is this about creating a healthy planet? Because the Impossible Burger is not a health food.
Well, it's not a health food. It's, I would say, by any reasonable measure, healthier than what it replaces. So if you are choosing to have a burger, you're better off choosing an Impossible Burger than one from a cow. It's lower calories, lower fat, lower saturated fat, zero cholesterol, no antibiotics, no hormones used in producing it, no slaughterhouse contaminants and so forth. So it's, if you're going to have a burger, you're better off choosing
More
ours.
health problems plague the country. A new study reveals it's not stopping many Americans from eating that fast food. RT's Natasha Sweet is in Los Angeles with more. Natasha.
Good evening, Scotty. Despite the growing number of obesity, diabetes, heart problems, and the like, a new study finds more than 1 in 3 Americans eat fast food on a typical day. According to the CDC, that amounts to about 85 million people. Well, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention surveyed people from 2013 to 2016. A 3-year study found that nearly 40% of Americans ate fast food, but not necessarily every day. The study found roughly 23% of people in the U.S. chose fast food for breakfast. Lunch was the most popular at almost 44%, and dinner was a close second at 42%. The study also found men are more likely to eat fast food for lunch, while women would oftentimes eat fast food as a snack compared to men. Contrary to popular belief, fast food isn't just a lower income diet. In fact, the study found quite the opposite. Of the lowest income, about 32% ate fast food. For middle incomes, roughly 36% ate fast food, and higher income families consumed 42% fast food. Well, the study also found that by the age of 60, fast food consumption declined nearly 20% from young adults. The study does not specify whether fast food consumption has increased since 2016. In Los Angeles, Natasha Sweet.
Overeating than starvation and human violence. It seems like we're fighting a war on ourselves. So when do you think the decline of American health began, and who do you think benefits from it?
Well, I think the decline of American health began when sugar was introduced into everything we eat. And sugar is not particularly a good thing to consume a great deal of it. It makes you obese, it's not healthy, and yet if you look at everything, turn boxes over, read labels, and they're all done according to how much is in the box, and you'll see sugar is generally at the top. They've got Americans addicted to sugar.
I thought it was really interesting in that clip. It talked about, our bodies are rejecting the food now. Yes. And as you know, as a mother, and as I know, if you have other kids over to play, it usually involves an EpiPen. There's food allergies that are just running rampant. The second episode talks about the food allergies. Let's play that and then talk about it on the other side.
Something in our world is changing. Our bodies are rejecting the food we eat. And even the experts don't really know why.
When I started looking at food allergy, it was shocking that we knew so little about food allergies. Now, this is 12 years ago. We didn't even know how many kids had food allergies. Those numbers were not being collected.
Chicago pediatrician Ruchi Gupta has spent the last decade tracking this worldwide trend. A surge in food allergies, especially among children.
It was just starting to get noticed. You started hearing it more and more, but yet we still didn't understand the extent of the problem.
We have eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, finfish, shellfish, sesame seeds, and legumes.
The list, it goes on and on. What did doctors tell you? Why are we seeing so many more food allergies?
We actually don't have a clear answer, even though we've been spending months investigating this. We do know that things like peanuts are coming from the earth where there's a lot of pesticides that have been used. Also, we know that it's a good thing if your body is rejecting these things. It's kind of like a natural thing that happens. But there are a lot of theories, and we don't have good answers to why so many kids are still getting sick.
And we talked about this earlier, but just flipping through the book, you talked about milk.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that I got wrong was about the number of adults being lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
I thought lactose intolerance is just a handful of people. Mm-hmm. It's not true.
No, globally, 75% of the world's population is lactose intolerant. So the anomaly is being lactose tolerant. It's usually Northern European people who can tolerate more dairy. But the dairy we're eating isn't the dairy we ate, right? We, first of all, until we're agriculturalists about 12,000 years ago, nobody ate dairy. You wouldn't be milking a saber-toothed tiger, right?
Yes, definitely not.
No. But we ate heirloom cows. They had less inflammatory forms of protein in them called casein. And now we have these feedlot cows that
This country really becomes so miserable. What do you think is causing this? Is it bullying, body image problems, social media? Why women?
Boy, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. That's a tough one to ask me, Brigida. But it's obviously something we need to look at, because whenever you see a spike in something like this, there always seems to be a root cause. Something is causing it to happen. All these kids with the emotional problems today. I remember I didn't see that when I was a kid.
But at a certain point, it dawned on me that given my background, I was able to sort of put on my journalist hat and really dive into the research to explore the mechanisms at play that were robbing my mom of her brain power. And the optimism that I was reading in the medical literature was a stark contrast to the sort of neurological nihilism that I experienced in doctors' offices with her. So I became sort of obsessed with culling information from all sources, and my background as a journalist gave me the ability to know what sources were worth looking into and exploring further and what were more pseudoscience and stuff that I should leave alone. And I decided to basically reach out to researchers around the globe, and at this point I've read hundreds, if not thousands, of medical research papers. I've interviewed some of the top research scientists in the world. I've built a rapport with some of the most well-known clinicians practicing dementia prevention, and at a certain point you learn enough about a topic and you become obsessed to learn so much about a topic that you glean a bit of expertise in it. So that's what led me to writing Genius Foods, which is a book that I think really separates fact from fiction and goes deep into the mechanisms behind dementia and Alzheimer's disease as we know them today. But it's also a book about optimizing the way that your brain works in the here and now, because something that very few people realize is that the same things that you can do that'll minimize your risk for some of these awful diseases that we're talking about actually also make your brain work better so that you can feel happier, have more energy. This is incredible, and it's something that very few people know about.
Life expectancy in America has declined for the second year in a row, with more Americans dying early. Now, if you look at the statistics, the numbers don't seem all that dramatic, with a decline of just 0.1 year. But if you look deeper, it turns out America has one of the largest income-based health disparities in the entire world. According to a recent report, the poorest third of Americans, almost 40%, say they are in poor health, when compared to 12% of the richest third.
It's embarrassing that the richest country in the world for the last 100 years would have people in the health conditions they're in today. We have money to fight wars all the time. I harp on this all the time. We have plenty of money to kill people. We have plenty of money we spend on billions on new aircraft carriers named after Gerald Ford. Meaningless crap that floats out in the ocean today. And yet we have people in our own country with bad nutrition, bad health care, and I think part of it comes down to, in the United States, the use of preservatives here, our food. When I go off the grid, I eat organic food that will spoil in a week. All the food in the United States has a shelf life of at least 30 days, all these chemicals they put on it. Well, to me, that's the answer. It's what we're doing with these GMOs and these chemicals has to be part of the reason why our health care is beginning to fade.
It's a well-known fact that America is one of the most obese nations in the world, as you said, and the problem is only getting worse. Now, according to the most recent reporting, 40% of American adults are obese. That's nearly half of all adults, Governor. And children aren't faring any better. Almost 20% of our nation's children suffer from excessive weight. That's too much. Today, more people die from overeating than starvation and human violence. It seems like we're fighting a war on ourselves, doesn't it, Governor?
Yes, it does, and it's a stupid war. And look at our lifestyle today. Everybody lives with the cell phone. Everybody lives with the computer, all the way down to our smallest children. I remember when I was a kid, You went out in the backyard and played. You went down to the park and played. You did physical things. That's the other thing we need to look at. Physical training. You can't sit on your ass all day long and think you're going to be physically fit.
You know, dietary treatment guidelines for people with something called mild cognitive impairment were just a couple months ago updated to include exercise. So your doctor might as well write exercise on the prescription pad.
Everything can't be solved with a drug, and a lot of plants and a lot of nutrition and things like that can do things naturally that something created in a laboratory can do. Why would you choose the laboratory when you got the natural the way it was meant to be?
Thousands of years ago with Hippocrates, who said, let food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food. But now we think of food mostly as energies, calories, right? Calorie restriction is the way to lose weight. You want to eat less, exercise more, except there's really no evidence that that works because we've been getting fatter and fatter. And we're getting that advice from our doctors, our nutritionists, from the government, from food industry, which should make you suspicious. And the truth is that food is actually far more than calories. It's information. It's like instructions that talks to your body with every single bite. So it changes your gene expression. It regulates your hormones. It changes your immune system, can create inflammation or reduce inflammation. It affects your microbiome, affects your brain chemistry, literally with every single bite. So it's like code that programs your biology. And if you're putting junk in, you're going to get junk out. That's why disease happens. So food, it turns out, is probably one of the most powerful drugs on the planet. We can reverse type 2 diabetes in a few weeks, changing people's diet, but there's no medication that can do that.